now is what photographers call the magic hour. I've just spotted another great shot. Going to try and put together a series of stitched images. I'm hoping for a really exciting shot. That's exactly what we want. I've got 2 lights set up and we've got this lovely wooden line. The exposure range is just too great. Hi, I'm Karl Taylor. Now, a lot of you ask us questions about flash guns or strobes, speed lights, whatever you want to call them. And I thought what I'd do today is just give you a really quick overview of a couple of the guns that we use and some of the settings on them and some of the reasons why I don't actually use these sort of flash guns very often. I'll come to that in a moment. Now, let's start off with the simplest of things that we get asked a lot, and that is about the power of a flash. Well, on the flash guns, you'll see a number. This one's a 580EX. This one's a DI866, and that number actually doesn't correlate really well to the power of that gun, but generally the number on here means something. In this case, it's a guide number 58, and it means that this flash will fire to 58 meters distance. It will illuminate something 58 meters away at ISO 100, usually at f4, but that's a little bit vague, if you like, because effectively it'll only do that when the flash beam is set to its narrowest angle and you're using a lens that matches that flash beam. So there are only specific circumstances that would allow you to illuminate something 58 meters away with this flash gun. This one is specified as being a 60 meter distance gun, and the new Canon gun that replaces the 580EX, which is the 600EX, is specified as a 60 meter gun. Generally speaking, they often underperform those statements or those figures that they're stating on the flash gun. Now, what do I mean about the zoom setting on the gun? Well, let's have a look at that. On most flash guns, we have a zoom feature here, and let me just put the light on. You can see a focal length stated in millimeters there. So there I was at 24 mil, 28 now, 35, 50. And this is basically telling the gun what focal length lens you're using, so that the flash gun narrows the beam of light to suit that lens to maximize the power. Now on this flash, it goes to 105 millimeter, and it will narrow the beam of light to match that of the 105 millimeter lens, and that's where the 58 meters distance comes from. You wouldn't be able to attain 58 meters from this gun if it was set to the 24 mil zoom setting, because the light would be spreading out wider and falling off over a wider area. Now, when you're using flashes with wider angle lenses, there is also usually an extra diffusion sheet here that falls down to help spread the light even further, and that's so that if you're using this flash with a fisheye lens or a super wide angle lens, that the coverage of light will fall and cover the area that your lens can see. Now, on many of the modern day DSLR cameras, when you use the right flash with the right camera, which is called a dedicated setup, dedicated connection, the camera will tell the flash automatically which lens it's using, and the zoom will adjust automatically. So you don't need to worry about setting these zoom distances of the type of lens that's on there, because the camera will do the calculations and transfer that information to the flash to get it right. Now, there are instances though when often I'm using these flashes off camera in different locations, maybe a few of them, and I can manually put that zoom setting in to cover the width of the area that I want to capture or illuminate. Now, what else have we got on the settings on here? Let's have a look at some of the modes. Well, the standard mode that many of you will be familiar with is the mode called ETTL mode. Let me just get out of that a second. Let me just, sorry, put that flash thing back there. If I go back to mode, there we go, ETTL. Now, ETTL is basically like the automatic mode. It means evaluative through the lens metering, and it means that the flash guns usually fire a very small pre-flash, which is measured by the light meter in the camera, and that then determines the final output power of the flash to get the balance of flash correct, to not overexpose or underexpose. Does it work? In modern day cameras, it works pretty well actually. You can vary your subject to camera distance, fire the flash directly at the subject, and quite often the light meter will determine the correct amount of flash. However, flash power, when you get into more tricky lighting situations with low light background or where you're trying to capture a longer exposure on a tripod and put some fill-in flash, and you want to capture, say, some illumination of city lights or something in the background, then the ETTL metering system might not be so accurate. There might be complications for it. And this is where I always revert to manual flash mode. And if we go onto the mode settings here, I go into manual mode, and there's the M sign come up, and then I can push the button here, and I can dial in the power pretty much like a volume control. I'm just controlling the amount of light that's going to come out. So I can go all the way down to 128th power, or I can then gradually increase that in 1/3 stop increments, getting more powerful and more powerful, all the way up to 1:1, which is full power, and that will put the maximum output power out of the flash gun. So there are a variety of settings I can control manually, and more often than not, that's how I use my flashes. I use them in manual, take a test shot, look at the output power. I don't have to rely on the ETTL then. I can just see what I'm shooting, set it up, and then adjust the power manually like a volume control till I get the right intensity of light. Now that's very much the same on the Nissin gun here. That's similar. You've got manual control, you've got TTL control, you've got control over the zoom setting, the width that the beam spreads. Some additional great little features on the Nissin is that it's got a built-in slave so that you can have one flash somewhere else, and when you trigger a flash, it picks up the light from that and automatically fires the other one. That can save you using wireless transmitters, which is often used when you want to put flashes in different positions. However, if you're working outdoors in bright sunlight, the slave flash mode may not pick up the light because of the brightness of the ambient sunlight around, and that's where wireless triggers come in very useful. Certain guns like the Nissin here, they have built-in wireless transmitter settings. I'm not sure if it's wireless or infrared, but anyway, you can set these up so that they will link to each other and basically talk to each other and tell each other when to fire if you're using them in different locations. Let's have a look at other features of the flash gun. When I pulled the diffusion screen out before, you may have noticed that little white card flipping up there. Now that is basically a bounce card, so that if you want to fire your flash up at the ceiling to spread the area of light to create a softer light, some of the light will hit this little white piece of card and bounce back onto your subject, onto your person, and that will then put a little catch light in their eyes, a little bit of extra fill light, and that can be quite a useful accessory to have built in the flash. Now, talking about bouncing the light, let's look at how a flash gun sits on a camera. Okay, sits on like so, and the light would be directed very much straight towards your subject, a straight beam of light towards the person that you're taking. Same on cameras with a built-in flash. Let me just figure out how I can, there we go. You've got a very small little flash there that's going to direct the light straight towards the subject matter, straight towards the person you're photographing. And that's why on these more high-end strobes or speed lights, you have the ability to change the flash head position. So you can angle the flash up in the air, or you can angle it sideways to bounce off something to the side. Now, what's the reason for that? Well, the reason is that direct flash that hits someone straight on is not very flattering. It usually casts a very strong, harsh shadow that doesn't look very good behind the subject, and the lighting on the subject isn't always that attractive or that appealing. So the idea is that by bouncing the flash off of a ceiling, if you're working indoors, or off of a wall indoors, usually ceilings are white or walls are white, so you can bounce that light onto a big white surface, and that will then make that area of light bigger, which will make it softer and spread it out and give a more flattering light. Now, if you don't fully understand what I'm talking about, softer light and harder light there, check out our other tutorial on light, okay? We've got a great tutorial on light on Vimeo and on YouTube, and that explains about hard light and soft light. Basically, by angling the flash and bouncing it off in a different direction, you are providing the ability to create a softer light. Now, ironically, I have seen many daft photographers shooting the flash gun up in the air like this when they're outdoors, which is just nonsense, because what are they going to bounce it off? Nothing, because it's just firing straight up in the sky. So they've obviously been misguided on information about what that function is for. This is purely to bounce the light off of another surface to create a softer light, not to fire it off into outer space where it won't do anything. Now, you may also have seen accessories that clip onto flashes to help soften the light and spread the light. There are lots and lots of different gizmos on the market that you clip onto the top of your flash gun that creates like a little white box, or maybe a little soft box at the front to spread the light. And all those things are trying to do is to create a bigger area of illumination, because the bigger the area of illumination, the softer the light will be and the more flattering it will be. It will be less harsh, less direct. Now, all of those gizmos, some of them work, some of them are a bit gimmicky, but all of those gizmos are just trying to soften and spread the light. And in actual fact, you can save yourself a load of money by doing something like this. And this is simply some tracing paper that I've cut into a spiral, and that will allow me to pop that over the top of the flash gun, like so. And then we could fix that with an elastic band. And then basically when I fire the flash, it spreads the light into that lovely big area. And I've used this technique many times, and this works really well, because if you're shooting indoors and you want to spread the light off the ceiling by bouncing it up in the air, this will still do that because you've got an opening, the light's going to fire out the top. But at the same time, the light is illuminating this bigger panel. I'll do that again for you. Let me just turn the power down so it's not overly blinding you. And we basically get this spread of light off this larger surface plus bouncing off the ceiling. And this is just a homemade bit of tracing paper wrapped up into a spiral, and then cut the bottom off it with a pair of scissors, and then stick it over your flash gun with an elastic band or some sellotape, and then you're basically creating the same effect of some of the gizmos that attach onto flash guns. So by using that, that's a much cheaper, much more economical way of actually creating the very same thing that you can, that often costs you hundreds of dollars. Now, going back to flash guns in general, I don't generally like to use flash guns like this. Basically, I'm looking to use larger flash guns like this one here, which is a studio light. And this studio light will give me a much higher output power, and it will allow me the opportunity to put many, many different attachments onto the flash, such as a softbox, which will spread the light even further, or umbrellas, or different accessories to direct and modify the light. Now, obviously, this is a large light that you can't fit on top of the camera, but that's the idea, is that you don't want to put it on the camera, you want to direct the light from a different angle or a different position. And interestingly, many of the flash guns that are available on the market today, like this, which are now £500 or £600 or nearly $1,000, are actually about the same cost as some of the smaller studio lights that you can get. And with the smaller studio lights, you can basically trigger these by having a wireless transmitter on your camera and a wireless receiver on the light. So if you're thinking about purchasing expensive speed lights and expensive accessories for speed lights, think about what your final use is going to be. Think about how you need to use the camera either in a portable mode, where these are great, And then also think about modifying the light, because that's the most important thing, is modifying that light to create a softer light, to make it more attractive and give you a much better final image. Well, anyway, that gives you a little bit of an overview on flashes and hopefully helps you understand a little bit more about them. On our free micro course on our website, we have a fantastic little tutorial, I think it is, on the results showing the difference between bounced flash and direct flash, so check that out as well. Right now is what photographers call the magic hour. I've just spotted another great shot. Going to try and put together a series of stitched images. I'm hoping for a really exciting shot. That's exactly what we want. I've got 2 lights set up and we've got this lovely wooden line. The exposure range is just too great.